When I use Documate with Zapier, I can also create multi-user workflows. So I can have one user, whether it's myself or another client, begin a workflow and a different user entirely finish it. To set this up, I'm going to use another application as the trigger. So for example, if I want to start my intake process with my clients by inputting their data into Clio, and then I want them to provide additional information in their Documate workflow, then for the trigger, I'll select Clio. I'll choose the event that I want to trigger the transfer of information. So here I'll say that I want this to trigger when a new contact is created. Once I've followed all the steps to set and test the trigger, I'll choose Documate as my action step. For the action event, I'll choose Create and populate a new session, and I'll connect my account. I'll choose the workflow name that I would like to push data into. So I'm going to push data into my intake form, and I'll choose to keep the review page and not to skip it. If we choose to skip the final review page and we map all of our required questions in the Documate workflow to a field from our trigger application, then when the continuation URL is followed, it will take us right to our output documents screen so that we can download our final output documents immediately after we click that URL. Additionally, if we have chosen to send automated emails containing those output documents through Documate, those emails will be sent immediately when the continuation URL is clicked. If the review page is skipped and all required fields in Documate are populated through this app. Then I'm going to map all of the data that I'm entering in Clio to Documate fields. So I know that in Clio, I'm going to collect my client's name and address, and I'm going to collect the type of service that will provide them. So in my client name fields for Documate, I will click and select the client's first name from Clio. I'll do the same thing for their last name and these address fields. Once I've mapped all of this client data that I plan to input in Clio and would like to populate in Documate, I'll click Continue, Test, and Confirm. Then, because I want to send this to my client, I'm going to add a third step where I send this continuation URL to the client's email as I entered it in Clio. So I'll add a third step. I'll choose to do an email step and choose to send an email. And then I'm going to choose to send this to data from my Clio entry. So we'll choose the email address. And I'm going to enter in the body of my message the continuation URL from the Documate step of my Zap. As a reminder, this is how our client will access the workflow that we've started with for them with this Zap. I've added some additional information to the body of the email, giving a little more instruction to the client about what to do when they access this continuation URL. And now I'll turn this Zap on. Once I've turned this Zap on, I can test it by creating a new contact in Clio. So I've come into my Clio account and I'm going to create a new person contact. And once I've entered all of my information, I'll click Save Contact. The session will now be begun in Documate, and my client will receive an email prompting them to continue. This is the message that my client will receive in their email. You can see that the name is populated from Clio, and then they see their continuation URL. So when I click on this, all of the data that I've already entered through Clio and mapped to Documate fields has populated in these fields, and the client can provide the rest of the information that we need. Once the client has completed this workflow, any documents that you've connected to the workflow will be generated, and your output document settings will be respected. So if you've allowed the client to access the document at the end of the workflow, they'll be able to do so. Or if you're having them sent elsewhere, then those documents will be sent once the client completes and submits the rest of the workflow.